Welcome to Retire with Purpose, a show specifically designed to help you maximize your financial confidence in retirement. Casey Weade is the CEO and Chief Visionary of Howard Bailey Financial, a certified financial planner and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. He's your host on Retire with Purpose.
Hey, I'm Casey Weade, and we believe in retirement strategies that are driven by meaning and purpose. Join us this week and every week as we discuss planning for your best retirement, pinpointing your purpose, building a rock-solid financial plan, and unpacking trending topics that could impact your financial future. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, as he does every week, my good friend and co-host and fellow certified financial planner. Mentioned he's also the vice president of Howard Bailey Financial. Got Marshal Johnson here with me.
Hey.
This is our opportunity to discuss retirement with you. So whether you're at retirement, in retirement, near retirement, you're just seeking that coveted job optional status, you have found yourself a home. We're going to have a wide-ranging discussion today, talking about everything from Biden's capital gains tax rate increases to pitfalls of picking the wrong financial advisor, planning for decumulation versus accumulation, and the bucket approach to retirement income planning. But off the top, we're going to be hitting on one of our weekend reading for retirees articles. What is weekend reading? Well, it's an email that we send out every single Friday with 4 topics on trending topics in the retirement planning space. We've got 4 articles, trending topics, all designed to keep you on top of the latest trends so that you can make better decisions about retirement and financial planning and just help you create better peace of mind on your way in and through retirement. If you'd like to get a link to this article, we also did a full-length discussion on this very article on the Retire with Purpose podcast, of which you can get wherever you listen to podcasts, or you can go on over to retirewithpurpose.com. Click on the podcast tab, check out the article, get a link to the article, watch the YouTube video. This one is from Forbes, and it is titled, "When Should You Retire? The Big Question."
The big question. Yeah, the author here, Steve Vernon, posted this article to Forbes, "When Should You Retire?" He goes on to say, if you're in your 50s and 60s, deciding when to retire is one of the most important decisions. And I like this article, Casey. It's an easy read, and it's got some really good tips in it.
Yeah, and this is a question that everybody wants to know. You want to know, when should you retire? And it comes down to not just financial factors. It also includes the softer side of retirement. The non-financial factors also have to be considered. And you can be overwhelmed with that question on when should you retire. And I think there's risks when you go in and speak with a financial advisor that something may get overlooked by that individual. Maybe your HR director is overlooking something as you're sitting down and talking with them. Maybe you're overlooking, your neighbor's overlooking something, your spouse is overlooking something. And this article checks a lot of really solid boxes to make sure that you're paying attention to what matters the most. And off the top, they talk about financial enablers and financial barriers. So there are some go factors, and these are financial factors. So there are some go financial factors you want to consider. There's also some no-go financial factors that you want to consider. Some of these maybe you've thought of. Some of them might be relatively new.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about, he says here, first you'll want to determine if your retirement income from all sources will cover your basic discretionary living expenses. I think that's step one, right? We got to start there. What sort of income are we going to have from Social Security? Are you taking systematic withdrawals? You doing the old 4%? Do you have any pensions? This is a great first place to start and solve for that. What do we call it? Solving for the gap.
And this is the second place we start when you come in and visit with our team. I have had this conversation many times, just did here several weeks ago with a gentleman that came in and said, "Hey, I want to retire." I said, first, why do you want to retire? So we start there. What's the purpose? Why do you want to retire? Sure. What's the goal? What are you going to do in retirement that you're going to find fulfilling? If we don't ask that question first, then we can jump to a dangerous place. We can put you in a position that maybe you ultimately shouldn't or don't really want to be in from a purpose standpoint. And then we go straight into the income, right? So we want to know, how much income do you have? Let's walk through all of the different income sources you're going to have in retirement. And then we jump to expenses. I say, how much are you going to spend when you're in retirement? How much do you spend a day? And he goes, I don't know. I've never put together a budget. I said, well, it's going to be very difficult for us to put together a retirement income strategy if we don't know how much you're actually spending. And
you got to know what to solve for.
You have to, before you meet with a financial advisor, you have to get your ducks in a row. And that big one is knowing those income sources and knowing your expenses. If we don't know how much you're spending, then we'll never be able to determine whether you can retire or not.
And right there, you talk about your income sources. Well, if somebody's retiring at 58 or 59, they're not going to have Social Security yet. So you have these phases where you may not be into Social Security yet. And then you talk about people that are retiring early. One of those expenses is healthcare. So understanding how much that could impact your monthly spending is going to drive some of those numbers.
Well, and you just keep saying, hey, how much can I retire? Can I retire? Can I retire? I do not know if you can retire until we dial in your expenses. And he said, well, just give me as much income as I could possibly get. Well, that's not a good solution, because what if you're only spending $5,000 a month? Now we're generating $10,000 a month. You might say, well, the more is better.
More is
However, more incomes means more taxes at the same time. We shouldn't necessarily be generating more income than you're actually going to be spending. We should keep that tax deferred. We should keep that tax free. We should not be generating more income than you actually need. And you might go, yeah, but I'll figure out how to spend it.
Right.
I've never seen that happen. As people step into retirement, you've been spending money the same way for the last 40 years.
Sure.
You don't just flip a switch and start spending twice as much as you did on your way to retirement. And sometimes you might have heard, well, I don't have enough income to cover my expenses. That doesn't mean you can't retire. It just might mean that you need to work longer. Maybe we need to make some expense adjustments. And I did this with a couple a few years ago where they had a considerable amount of debt. And that's where the bulk of their expenses were going, was to cover that debt load on a month-to-month basis.
Sure.
We had to help them reorganize that debt so they could retire. They didn't think they could until we showed them how to reduce their expenses, not reduce their lifestyle, but reorganize those expenses. And you could also consider deploying your home equity. And maybe you want to look into doing some type of reverse mortgage to generate additional income over and above what your investments can.
Next up in the article, he talks about reasons to retire. And I love this because he goes into the push-pull, right? He says people may be pushed into retirement. For example, they may have poor health, they've got a really stressful environment, or they simply are just fed up, Casey. How many times have we heard that? Those are factors that may push somebody into retirement. But on the other hand, you may be pulled into retirement for more freedom, or to pursue the things in life that really give you the most out of life that you don't have the time to pursue.
Yeah, you might have some specific goals. Maybe they're charitable causes you want to participate in. You want to volunteer. You have travels, hobbies. And when we look at those factors, this is why it's so important that an advisor is actually digging in to these types of questions that you might go, why is he asking what my hobbies are? Why does he ask me where I want to live? Blah, blah, blah. This is important because that may mean that you want to continue to work. Maybe you are going to continue to work. That's going to impact the income strategy. Maybe some of those hobbies, maybe that second home is going to require additional capital, extra income. It might impact our estate planning for that matter. And ultimately, we may decide that you shouldn't retire after we get through some of these softer elements. And that leads us into the reasons to continue to work.
Yeah, sometimes you're pushed to continue to work. Maybe you don't have you've got to support loved ones, you've got dependent children, aging parents. On the other hand, you may be pulled back to work. You might find that work is fulfilling and you have work goals that indicate that you're maybe just not done yet.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the sandwich generation we're dealing with today, right? You may have aging parents you're caring for as well as young children. Well, that is quite often a really darn good reason to continue to work, but it can also be a really darn good reason to step into retirement too. But what we're seeking here is the freedom to choose.
Yeah.
We want the freedom to choose. So whether you plan to retire or not, you should have a plan that allows you the freedom to choose to do the things you want to do. Maybe you're getting pulled into continuing to work because you have some work goals or you find your work fulfilling, but having the freedom to choose means that you now have the freedom to choose to do the things you really love with the work that you're doing. And maybe we can leverage your finances to eliminate some of those things that you hate or you just feel like you have to do.
Yeah. And I ran into a family the other day where they felt pulled to work to maintain health insurance. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that's been a topic. Well, I can't retire yet. I'm not 65. But, well, today's a new world. Let me tell you, getting insurance is never been as easy as it is today. You just have to pay for it, and you have to be able to understand what it costs. And plenty of people have the resources to pay for it, Casey, but they feel compelled or pulled back to work. So having those conversations to really figure out if you can make it work are step one.
Yeah, and you have to be aware of these triggers, these triggering ages. You mentioned one, age 65. Some feel they should retire because they reached a milestone age. Age 65, age 62, age 67, maybe some age in your employer's retirement plan. Maybe your spouse is going to retire at a set time. Maybe you had a birth of a grandchild, some other life-changing event. These are literally the worst reasons to retire. And these are probably the most common reasons that I hear. Well, I turned 65.
62.
I'm supposed to retire.
Yep. No, I love this part of the article because he talks about, family and friends. That's one trigger that I see quite a bit. It's like, hey, if your group of close friends all start retiring and you're still working, that's going to feel like a trigger. And, you want to put the work in to know that when that time comes, hey, maybe it really is time to start getting real about this planning stuff.
And my favorite part of this article personally is the Plan B piece. You need to be prepared to pivot for some overriding events. We saw a lot of these during 2020, layoffs, job loss, reorganization, healthcare shocks, family disruptions. You need a Plan B that you can pivot to, whether you plan to retire or not. I have two individuals that come to mind. I have one that has ran a very large business for many years. And when we met about 5 years ago, he said, I never plan to retire. Why am I working with a retirement planner? I said, we need to be prepared in case that changes. What if something changes? Well, something changed. They were bought out by a private equity firm, and now he's being pushed into retirement. He texted me the other day and he said, Casey, I need to plan on retiring at 65. I need to know what kind of lifestyle I can afford. I lolled. I gave him an LOL, thinking he was joking. I mean, this is a guy that's never going to retire. And then I texted him back a couple days later and said, are you serious?
Yeah, was that for real?
And he said, oh, yeah, I'm serious. I am what you said might happen is happening, and I'm going to have to step into retirement in the next couple of years. I've got another friend that he set up passive income streams well into the six figures for himself. He was a past podcast guest as well, Justin Donald, and he did that for freedom, right? He is now going back to work and building a business called The Lifestyle Investor that he just adores and energizes him. He wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have that Plan B, which he has today, which are all those different passive income streams that he talks about during our show. If you're trying to determine how to set up passive income streams, maybe you want a Plan B, you're determining what that retirement date is for yourself. You want to talk about financial factors. Can I retire? When should I retire? Retirement income, expenses. This is what we specialize in. And right now we're offering a complimentary financial review for the next 10 callers where you can meet with an independent financial advisor on our team, either in person or we can do it through a video meeting from the comfort of your couch, and we'll help you determine how prepared you are to handle all these different retirement pitfalls. In short, we'll take the guesswork out of retirement planning for you. It can take just 30 minutes. So right now, for the next 10 callers that call or text CONSULT, that's CONSULT, to 866-482-9559, we're offering a comprehensive financial review at no obligation, 866-482-9559. We'll be right back after the short break to take questions from you.
You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me to answer questions from you. So if you have questions, we've got answers. Go on over to retirewithpurpose.com. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, it says Ask Casey a Question. Just type your question in there. That comes directly to us. We will answer that question and ask you if you'd like to be featured or have your question featured here on the radio show. And if you do, then we will bring the question on, just like we have with Rebecca and Chester and Steve. So what's keeping you up at night? What do you have questions about? Is it taxes? Is it Medicare? Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's the garage door needs fixed. We're here for you. Going over to retirewithpurpose.com. Our first question today comes from Rebecca, and Rebecca says, can you explain the pros and cons of a non-deductible IRA?
Man, I wish she would have asked about the garage door instead.
Yeah, I would have had a referral.
Yeah. Hey, call this guy. I know who to call.
A lot of garage door problems lately, so that was at the top of my mind.
Yeah, in the last 6 months. Jeez. Okay, so Rebecca, let me tell you what here.
Shout out to Raynor, though, for getting that right.
They do a good job?
They did a great job.
That's good. That's a good plug. Hey, Rebecca, pros and cons of non-deductible IRA. Well, one of the biggest cons, if you will, is that it's not deductible, right? You don't get that upfront tax benefit. But I will say that there are some real reasons why you would want to make non-deductible IRA contributions, one of which would be if you just absolutely ran out of other places to save. Non-deductible IRAs can defer. Listen, you're deferring your gains every year. Some people would argue that, man, you could be doing that in a brokerage account anyways, and then it would be taxed as a capital gain. But Casey, with all the changes going on with Biden, I look at this like this could be another way to diversify, especially if someday down the road you're making non-deductible IRA contributions to a 401k, and maybe you can roll those out into a Roth. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Everybody can contribute to an IRA. Doesn't matter how much income you make. There aren't any income limits on a traditional IRA. That isn't true with a Roth IRA, but it is with a traditional IRA. And if you have an employer plan at work, so if your workplace has a 401k, then income limits come into play with that traditional IRA. Yeah, so if you're married and you're making more than $125,000, then you can't take a deduction when you make an IRA contribution. You can still make the IRA contribution, but it has to be a non-deductible IRA. If you're going to do that, then I see the only benefit of a non-deductible IRA being the backdoor Roth option that you have. So you can now take that contribution you made to the IRA. You didn't get a tax deduction on it when you put it in there. You self-pay taxes on it. So why not just put it in there and then convert it to a Roth IRA? Now you were able to get that money into a Roth IRA. It's going to go tax-free for the rest of your life versus tax-deferred as the non-deductible IRA will. That's a no-brainer. Unless you have other IRAs out there. If you have other IRAs out there and you want to do a backdoor Roth, then be careful because there are some pitfalls there. Make sure you work with your CPA if you want to go down that road. But that's something that we help our clients with day in and day out. If you make too much money and you still want tax-free growth, that's one of our specialties. Give us a call at 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559.
Next up, we've got Chester. Chester says, Casey, I'm what you might call semi-retired right now. I work part-time with the end goal of retiring fully by the end of the year. What are some ways, financial or non-financial, I can make the most of my time left at work and newfound time now at home?
Well, I'm going to focus on the non-financial. I mean, as far as the financial goes, I mean, there's education and just investing, right? There's things that you should be doing. You shouldn't be waiting until you're fully retired to put together a retirement strategy. You might leave a lot on the table, especially given the major tax changes that are on the table for 2021. This might be your last year to take advantage of some of those tax strategies that we talk so much about here on the show. When it comes to the non-financial, it's really about getting ready for retirement and making sure you're going to have a truly fulfilling retirement once you have all of that free time. You go from half-time to full-time retired. Now you're going to have a lot more free time on your hands. And right now, it may feel like, oh, I've got everything filled. I've got all my buckets filled. I'm feeling pretty good. However, what about when you've lost all of that work time? Now you're spending twice as much time in retirement. Well, you might want to start thinking about your values. You might want to start thinking about purpose and meaning just a little bit more. One of the tools that I like for that, I love books, and I also love those little quizzes quizzes that can be so helpful, personality quizzes, behavioral quizzes, etc. One of my mentors, Michael Hyatt, he wrote a book called Your Best Year Ever. Marshall and I have both read the book, and we also saw Michael Hyatt do his presentation on Your Best Year Ever in person. We went to a little convention around that.
Was that a Comic-Con?
Yeah, it was something along those lines. It was a con. It was a convention, and there was a quiz that we both did following that, where he walks you through in the book and in the quiz the 7 different areas of your life. And I found that really helpful because it'll show you those areas where your bucket might not be completely full. Those areas of life that you might want to work on a little bit more, so you can get that round wheel of values rather than that lopsided value wheel. You can also get a copy of my book, Job Optional, or join us for our Purpose webinar. We have a webinar we did around purpose and mission and vision and values, which you can get at retirewithpurpose.com. Just go to retirewithpurpose.com/webinars, and you can watch our Purpose webinar and give us a call right now. We'll send you out a copy of my book, Job Optional. That's 866-482-9559. We'll get that in your hands at no cost.
Yeah, some of the happiest retirees that I work with, are the most fulfilled retirees, are those that are really clear on some of those things that you were just touching on. And it sounds like Chester can spend some time trying to get clear on kind of his vision and what that looks like for him. Those are the people that are the happiest, right? They know exactly why they're here, why they're getting out of bed every morning. And I see some families that do struggle with it. You know, they haven't gotten there yet, and they're really missing something from their life.
Our next question comes from Steve, and Steve says, I believe I have my retirement accumulation figured out, but the planning for decumulation is what I'm trying to understand now. I've heard of the bucket approach and wondered if you could explain that.
I love that he says that I believe I've got the accumulation figured out, right? That's the easy one, right? You just go to work, you save 15% of your income, you stuff it in the 401k, and you do that for 35 years, and then you're good to go, right? But many, many people struggle with this decumulation when it's time to start creating income. Casey, I think you do a wonderful job in your book, Job Optional, of covering the different income strategies. The bucket approach is covered in there, but there's a lot of different approaches. But to me, if you're going to simplify the term bucket approach, you've got multiple buckets that are doing multiple things at multiple risk levels.
Yeah, there's kind of 2 different thoughts when you think about the bucket approach. One is, well, no matter how you look at it, it's a behavioral finance approach to retirement. Just because they're in buckets, it doesn't mean that the overall structure of your portfolio, your allocations, are going to be any different than if they were all in the same bucket.
It's just trying to get you
it's mental accounting, right? We have mental accounting, knowing that, hey, this is my emergency money. This is my short-term emergency money, my long-term emergency money. This is my near-term income dollars. These are my long-term income dollars, my flexibility dollars, my inflation protection dollars, my inheritance dollars that I'm leaving behind, those charity dollars, the long-term care dollars, right? It's knowing that every single dollar has a purpose, and that's how we like to structure our plan, so that you know that every dollar has been assigned a purpose and they're most efficiently accomplishing those goals. When it comes to a bucket approach to the big picture, that's what we're talking about, right? You have different buckets for different purposes. Now you can drill down a little bit further. Quite often when you hear the bucket approach, we're talking about a retirement income strategy, a specific type of retirement income strategy. The one that's most common that's not a bucket approach would be taking your portfolio and just taking a set percentage of withdrawals every year. So you might take 4% a year out of your portfolio of stocks and bonds. That could result in panic, couldn't it? What if we had a March of 2020 experience where now all of a sudden you're down 20% in your 60-40 portfolio and you go, oh my gosh, I need to sell. I can't afford losses like this, even though not everything in that portfolio suffered losses. Instead, with the bucket approach, you're going to set some funds aside that might be satisfying 12 months worth of expenses. I just did this for my aunt here this past weekend. We set aside 12 months worth of expenses in a money market account. Then we set aside 10 years worth of income in a second leg. That's going to satisfy their income needs for 10 years. Then we set another bucket approach, the third bucket aside that we're not going to touch for 10 years. And we sought out the best guaranteed income that we could create with a 10-year deferral. And then after 10 years, that's going to guarantee all their income needs for the rest of their life. So we have 3 buckets. They know that bucket number 1 is their short term, bucket number 2 is their near term, bucket number 3 is their long-term income needs. And you can do iterations of this. When you come in and visit with our team, we're going to walk you through an approach like that. We'll walk you through a risk-based approach, utilizing fixed income, utilizing equities. And as Marshall mentioned, we walk you through all of those different income strategies, including the bucket approach in my Wall Street Journal bestselling book, Job Optional, which we want to get in your hands so that you can start studying those different income strategies and know all the ins and outs that are out there when it comes to retirement income planning. If you'd like to get a copy of that book at no cost, no obligation, a free copy of Job Optional, then give us a call right now. We're going to send it out to you, 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. We'll send you out a complimentary copy of my book, Job Optional. Now stick around, because after this short break, we're going to be bringing to you some of the leaders in health and wellness and retirement, from Sachin Patel to Dr. Katie Vitova. We're going to talk Medicare. We're going to talk fitness. We're going to talk healthy eating and so much more to make your retirement plan that much more well-rounded.
First-time callers are eligible to receive 1 in-stock book per request. Limit 1 book per week per household, up to 3 books per calendar year. See full terms at howardbailey.com/terms. You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, is here in the house with me and so many other really fun guests we're going to be sharing with you today. We are going to be focusing on health and wellness in retirement, everything from how to physically feel better to navigating the complex world of health insurance and Medicare. A big part of living out your best retirement, it means feeling your best, and also knowing you have the best health insurance coverage possible when you don't. We've had the opportunity to feature several amazing experts that have had a huge impact in my life or clients' life right on our podcast, Retire with Purpose, about how to maximize wellness in your second act. So today, we're looking back at some of our most popular episodes that take a deep dive into prioritizing your health and your wealth. You can check out each of these featured episodes in full on retirewithpurpose.com/podcast. Now let's get started with our first guest. Episode number 161, we featured Sachin Patel. Sachin is the founder of the Living Proof Institute, where he practices functional medicine and promotes lifestyle changes to help patients and individuals around the world feel better and live happier, healthier lives. One of the interesting things about Sachin is he dropped his DR title and left his career as a chiropractor to focus more on his true passion, which is coaching others through a more holistic medical approach, following the belief that the doctor of the future is the patient. Here he shares with us the power of functional medicine and Sachin's belief that you are the best doctor for yourself.
Well, a lot of people come to us because they're feeling tired, their hormones are out of whack, their sleep isn't great, they're gaining weight, and they're doing quote unquote everything right. They're eating healthy and they're exercising. Well, here's the thing. So eating healthy is important, but how you eat is more important than what you eat, because we all know people that eat like, let's call it crap for now, that don't eat very healthy, but don't have digestive issues, don't have stomach issues, don't have major health challenges. And we all know people that are eating organic, eating whole foods, paleo, keto, like whatever the latest trend is, and they feel miserable. So clearly, through example, we can identify that there's a disconnect there. Why is it that some people don't eat healthy and they feel fine? Why is it that some people eat super healthy and they feel terrible? And the reason is because how they're eating. So it's not just what you eat, but how you eat. So eating is a parasympathetic activity.
I love this. So there's two big takeaways I've had from Sachin that I've never been able to let go ever since I had the opportunity to sit with him and go through a dad's retreat with him a couple of years ago. One is being a human being rather than being a human doing. And number two is how to eat. He shares the 4 C's of eating. 1, choose good food, make good choices, seek out whole foods. Number 2 is chew. You have to chew your food, chew like your life depends on it. We do these with our kids. You have to choose good food. You have to chew it really well. For instance, especially when you eat greens, those greens, if you swallow them whole, will not be digested. That's why, well, you see them on the back end, right? They have to be chewed really well in order for you to get the nutrients out of them. That's why we have teeth, and you have to cherish your food. We can't be eating on the run all the day like our society has trained us to do. Pick up fast food. We're running here, we're running there. I've learned to sit down and really appreciate the food that I'm consuming. And number 4, which is my kid's favorite, which is check the stool to make sure there are no chunks in there. And our kids love that, right? And they say, hey, Dad, look, I've been chewing my food. I've been doing a good job. That's the 4 C's. Choose, chew, cherish, and check. That was episode number 161 of the Retire with Purpose podcast with Sachin Patel. Next up, we're going to be sharing with you episode number 149, where we featured Dr. Carolyn McClanahan. Carolyn is a physician turned financial planner and founder of Life Planning Partners, a financial planning firm I have a lot of respect for that focuses on both your financial resources and your financial health while optimizing your plan as life circumstances change so that you can live your best life and retirement. She's going to share with us here why financial advisors need to also be focusing on your health and how it interplays into other areas of your life that could affect your retirement plan.
So my other favorite question that we talked about is, tell me what you do to take care of your health. And you might have a client say to you, I do 12-ounce curls. And I actually did have somebody say that to me once. And then our others, I had one guy say to me, well, I used to be 50 pounds overweight, and about 3 years ago, I started exercising and eating right, and I just ran my first half marathon. That tells you so much about a person. And then that lets them know, if a client knows that you're comfortable talking about health, then they become comfortable talking about it with you. And the reason it's important is it's wrong. People think of it just for longevity projections, but that is only the start of it. It matters for healthcare costs. It matters for insurance planning. It matters for estate planning. There's all these different nuances where knowing how a client lives in their health history helps the financial planner do a much better job.
You know, this might seem like a strange question, but it needs to be answered for all those reasons that were just laid out there. And it might feel like you're getting a little naked in front of your financial planner. Well, that's okay. Ask them to get naked too, okay? And we're able here, and that's one of the things that I love about our firm and our advisors, we're happy to share with you our own health and answer those questions with you. We're happy to answer those questions about our own finances. You know, it's only fair that we're sharing those things with one another. Next up, we're going to be sharing a feature with Dr. Katie Vitova, which was episode number 73 on the Retire with Purpose podcast. Katie is a registered nurse with a PhD in healthcare economics and nursing. She founded a company called Good Care to help consumers, small businesses, and financial advisors navigate the complexities of the healthcare realm. Here, she shares how you should be building healthcare costs into your retirement plan.
What I recommend is that people have a separate budget line in their retirement projection. Many people over time have put healthcare into the everything category, and it doesn't belong there. Have a separate line in the retirement budget, grow it by a higher inflation rate, 2 to 4 times the CPI. That's just honest truth. And then I don't focus on big numbers like some of the organizations that say it's going to be $250,000 in retirement for your healthcare. I focus on cash flow. What will your cash flow need to be in a year to pay for your needs, generally speaking? Yes, it's an estimate, but you can do it. And that's what's really important is the cash flow. Where's the cash flow coming from for this? How much might it be?
If you're looking for someone to help you determine what healthcare plan is right for you, and how to pay for it, that's what we do. Give us a call at 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. Next up, we're going to talk about Medicare, episode number 173 of the Retire with Purpose podcast with Medicare expert Danielle Roberts. Danielle is the co-founder of Boomer Benefits, a health insurance agency that I have a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
It helps baby boomers and seniors navigate the complex world of Medicare. Danielle joined the podcast to talk about why Medicare is just so complex, the major mistakes that people make when choosing and using Medicare coverage, and how to get the guidance you need to ensure that you'll be able to access vital health services in retirement. And here she shares with us how to understand the similarities between medical supplements amongst various carriers to find the best coverage fit for you.
So Medicare supplements have 10 different letters. They run A, B, C, D, F, G, K, L, M, N. There's some missing in there because they've been retired. And if you purchase a plan of the same letter from one carrier to the next, those basic benefits are going to be the same. So in 2020, Plan G is a very popular plan. It covers all of the gaps in Medicare except for the Part B deductible. If you got a Plan G quote from Blue Cross Blue Shield and Aetna and Cigna, you would know that all three of those are going to have exactly the same benefits. So you can compare based on price, and you can compare based on the financial stability of the carrier. You can look at those carrier ratings. At our agency, we also like to look at the rate increase histories. So if they've been in business for 5 years in that county or that state, what kind of rate increase histories have there been? And we give that information to our clients so they can make a good decision. But there'll be 30 different insurance companies offering these plans where you live. And the good thing is if you know you can compare apples to apples, like a Plan G to a Plan G, then you are usually going to be looking at the top 2 or 3 with the lowest price and determining from there which one feels good to you.
You know, this is a lot like crop insurance, if you're familiar with that. I recently had an interesting conversation with someone that does this for a living, sells crop insurance, and he said all the plans are exactly the same. It's government mandated that all the crop insurance coverages are exactly the same. Now, there's some nuances from one carrier to the next. However, all the coverages are the same from one carrier to the next, but the premiums can vary wildly. 866-482-9559. Maybe you're looking into more complex matters when it comes to retirement, and you want to dive in to figure out what it's really all about. We want to give you a copy of my Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Job Optional, so that you can start getting educated about your retirement future. In there, we walk you through tax strategies. We walk you through the latest retirement income strategies. We walk you through investing, inflation, estate planning, and so much more. Give us a call right now. We'll send it out to you at absolutely no cost. 866-482-9559, 866-482-9559. Now, for our question of the day, this is going to be a simple one, what is the current maximum long-term capital gains tax rate? We'll have the answer when we come back.
First-time callers are eligible to receive 1 in-stock book per request. Limit 1 book per week per household, up to 3 books per calendar year. See full terms at howardbailey.com/terms. You're listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. This is Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson.
Welcome back to Retire with Purpose, the science of retiring with confidence, the art of living with purpose. This is your host, Casey Weade. Joining me, my good friend and co-host, Marshall Johnson, here with me to answer your question of the day. So we asked this question before the break. What is the current maximum federal long-term capital gains tax rate? The current maximum federal long-term capital gains tax rate. So what is the maximum long-term capital gains tax rate today?
Well, Casey, I see you setting me up for failure. Are we talking about collectibles here? Are we talking about real estate? Because, that's a little different. But okay, I'll answer your question. 20%.
20% plus the Medicare surtax of 3.8%. So 23.8%. And you could argue that 3.8 isn't necessarily long-term capital gains tax. So I see where you're coming from there.
But then like works of art and wine is taxed at higher rates. So there's some caveats in there.
If you're into Vino Vest.
Musical instruments also, stamps, coins.
Well, 23.8% is the maximum federal rate for long-term capital gains tax rates. Now, today, we've got President Joe Biden's proposal would raise the top rate, almost double the top rate, to 43.4%. So going from 23.8 to 43.4%.
Yikes.
Potentially next year. So this is the year that you need to be doing some proactive tax planning around capital gains. If you own capital assets, if you own real estate, if you own stocks and an after-tax account, you need to be considering locking in some of those capital gains today. And you might say, well, why? Why don't I just wait and pass those things on to my kids? They'll get a step up in basis upon my death. Well, that's also on the table, is an elimination of that step up in basis as you pass those assets on to your kids. I'm currently working with my financial planner in conjunction with my estate planner on locking in some capital gains myself this year to make sure that I eliminate this risk. And this is what we do at Howard Bailey. We're saying, hey, I want to go ahead and eliminate these risks. I want to mitigate these risks. It's much like your tax-deferred retirement accounts. You've got these IRAs that are hanging out there, and you say, yeah, well, I'm only being taxed at, say, a 15% effective tax rate on these dollars. Not a big deal. Why would I do a Roth conversion? But the question mark is that going to be 30% in the future? Is it going to be 45% in the future that you're paying on those IRAs? Or your kid's going to pay 60% on those IRAs when they inherit them? I want to eliminate that risk. So let's lock in that tax rate, maybe pay 15, 20% in order to eliminate that variable, that unknown. That is what financial planning is all about, is eliminating as many unknowns as possible.
Yep, and those unknowns there's a lot of them out there today, so it's good to have these conversations now. We're doing a lot of proactive conversations. We're doing a lot of planning today, and then we can take action later in the year when things change.
Well, and some of this information actually came from one of our articles we put out in Weekend Reading this past Friday that came to us from Morningstar, titled Biden's Capital Gains Tax Plan Could Mean Big Changes for Wealthy Investors. You can get that article, a link to that article, along with getting signed up with our Weekend Reading for Retirees email series. Every Friday, get one email from our team with 4 articles on trending topics in the retirement planning space, all designed to keep you on top of those latest trends so you can make better decisions in retirement. Again, retirewithpurpose.com. First name and email will get you signed up to receive that article and so many more. We're going to be covering an article here with you now from Money Talk News titled 3 Pitfalls of Picking the Wrong Financial Advisor. Now, at first, I read that title and I'm thinking, man, it's kind of ucky, it's kind of icky, it sounds like they're beating up other financial advisors. It's obviously written by a financial advisor that's saying, hey, work with me, work with me. However, there actually were some good pieces in this article that actually came off very unbiased, sharing that you could work with a fee-only advisor. You could work with a commission-based advisor. There isn't necessarily a perfect advisor, but there are some things that you should look out for. And I think most of all, it's just picking the right financial advisor for you that's in your own unique situation. Every financial advisor is different. Everyone specializes in different things. We refer advisors over to fee-only advisors, to robo-advisors, to commission advisors. We have great relationships with other financial advisors, and we aren't perfect for everyone. We're not the right fit for everyone. Sure. We tell individuals down on the front end, our job today as we sit down in this first visit is to get to know each other, share with you who we are, get to know you, answer your questions. You answer your questions. At the end of this meeting, we'll say, hey, does this look like a fit to you? And if it does, then we'll move on to a second visit. That is a fit meeting, right? That's our chance to determine if we're a good fit. And if we're not, we're still going to that allow you to walk away with some good value, some things you can implement in your financial life, or some good referrals to get you on a better path.
Yeah, I think it's just like any relationship in life. Sometimes both sides, I mean, it has to work for both sides, right? We're not going to work with every single person that walks through the door. We might not have the right personality fit. Sometimes, somebody may be better off with a different advisor than myself. So it's about understanding our own bias, understanding relationships, and like this article says, just trying to avoid making a pitfall.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't like Marshall. It's just one of those things. It's his beard, maybe.
Would you say a lot of people?
Oh, okay, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
A lot of people love
Like, wait
Marshall.
a minute.
However, they're not always the right fit. Sometimes
absolutely.
the individuals come in and we decide, hey, they're a better fit for Casey or Ryan or Brad. We need to find the right fit. The wrong financial advisor, one without the right experience.
I'm going to interrupt you, though. I think you make a really good point, though. Even a firm that's got a team, right? And being able to recognize, like, hey, this is a client, this is a great family.
Yeah.
We work really, we can do great things for them, but our personalities don't mesh very well. Maybe you should work with Ryan or Rob. And we've had that in certain circumstances. You want a team.
We do that all the time. Everybody has a different personality, and I think every advisor I've ever met, they have certain strengths and certain weaknesses at the same time. Marshall loves talking stocks. He loves to talk about the market. He loves to talk about investing and stocks and bonds and ETFs and mutual funds and interest rates and betas and standard deviations. I mean, that's Marshall's thing, right? I want to talk about things at a higher level. We've got other advisors that are more focused on the estate planning or the tax planning. So whatever your need, we've got the team to solve it.
Well, and I think that leads us really well into the first point here that she makes in this article. It's, hey, there's a risk in hiring an inexperienced advisor.
Yeah, and I think most importantly here, do some investigative research. Do your research. It's so easy. We've got the internet at our fingertips today, right? Before you meet with a financial advisor, go to BrokerCheck and look them up. Go to BrokerCheck and look up that advisor's record. See how many marks they have on the record. See if they've been sued. See if they've had settlements. I just can't believe that doesn't happen. And I guess I'm sharing a little frustration here because a couple of years ago, I had an individual that came in, we met, and he ended up going and working with a different advisor. And I said, didn't you check out BrokerCheck first? I mean, this advisor has a friggin' Rolodex of marks on their record. How could you not do that? They said, yeah, I don't check those things. I mean, why not? Sure. It's so easy today to find out an advisor's record. Have they ever filed bankruptcy? Have they ever had marks written on them by the SEC or FINRA or the NAIC? It's very easy to background check an advisor today. And the article also shares with us that you want an advisor that has reputable and verifiable credentials. They get into an article that was actually in CNN that talked about the different types of designations that are out there, the pros and cons of different designations, and what are valuable designations and what aren't. I went out, checked out CNN's Ultimate Guide to Retirement, and it shares there's at least 100 financial designations. 100 financial designations. Many are just empty titles. They don't mean that much in the first place. For instance, the title retirement specialist, it doesn't meet up anything. That's a made-up label. It has no backing for any industry group. You've got the CSA, Certified Senior Advisor designation. That merely indicates that the expert, quote unquote, studied how to communicate with and market to seniors. Earning the Certified Retirement Financial Advisor credential does involve some financial training, but it's self-study. And you just have to pass a 100-question multi-choice exam. The group that actually grants that designation, Certified Retirement Financial Advisor, it's owned by a firm that sells a seminar for marketing annuities to seniors.
Oh boy.
It doesn't instill a whole lot of confidence. So do your research when it comes to designations and experience.
Yep. Look for your certified financial planner professionals. Look for chartered financial analysts if they're going to be picking stocks, and look for the big ones.
Yeah, and another factor to consider is figuring out what their specialty is. And there's a lot of advisors out there that help middle-aged people accumulate enough money to retirement. If you ask your advisor to help you put together an income strategy, you're going to step into retirement, they look a little bewildered. It means they may have a lack of experience on how to best turn those resources into retirement income once you're actually retired.
Yeah, we get this a lot. I have people that come to us when they near retirement saying, okay, my guy, he's really good at growing. He's really good at growth and accumulation, but he doesn't understand income strategies. I read your book. I start running through these strategies with him, and he kind of glazes over and says, yeah, that's not our thing.
Yeah. The number 2 piece of this article says, are you paying too much? What's the fee structure, right? You want to know how your advisor is being compensated and if it's fair. I think more importantly, if it's actually valuable, right? If all they're doing is focusing on saving and investment, if all they're doing is focusing on how much you're saving, how much you're investing, and they're not talking about Social Security planning, they're not talking about your home equity, they're not talking about budgeting, they're not talking about healthcare, they're not talking about tax planning or estate planning, then how much value has really been added? It's not that hard to invest money in the market today. That's a commodity. Go to a robo-advisor if you're just trying to accumulate assets. Keep your costs low. Pay next to nothing in fees and expenses. Just buy the S&P 500 and ride the roller coaster for that matter. However, if you're looking for a real strategy that involves real protection, that's worth paying for, right? You're working with an advisor that's adding alpha. You're adding alpha in so many different ways, from peace of mind to reducing your taxes year after year. If you have a more complex situation and you want more addressed, you might be willing to pay more for that value that you're going to get. Number 3 is avoiding getting a one-size-fits-all approach for your unique household needs. So make sure you have an advisor that's not just saying, hey, fill out this questionnaire, send it in, we'll spit out a financial plan, and you're set, right? We'll be done in about a half an hour. It took you a lifetime to accumulate the assets to get to where you're at today, 30, 35, 40 years into your accumulation years. You've saved these dollars. You can't just flip of a switch decide what you should be doing with them. Your plan needs to be unique to you, and some time and effort should be put into that strategy to make sure you have the secure and independent retirement you deserve. And that's why we're offering a complimentary financial review right now for the next 10 callers, where you'll meet with an independent financial advisor on our team, either in person or through a video meeting from the comfort of your home. We're going to help you determine how prepared you are to handle retirement pitfalls like inflation, healthcare emergencies, stock market crashes, rising taxes. In short, we'll take the guesswork out of financial planning for you. It can take just 30 minutes. So for the next 10 callers that call or text CONSULT to 866-482-9559, right now, we're offering a complimentary financial review at no obligation. Call or text CONSULT to 866-482-9559. Call or text CONSULT 866-482-9559. We'll be right back here with you next week on Retire with Purpose.
You've been listening to Retire with Purpose, hosted by Casey Weade and Marshall Johnson. Investment advisory services offered through Howard Bailey Securities, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Working with Howard Bailey Securities, LLC cannot guarantee investment success or that specific financial goals will be achieved. Certified Financial Planner Board of Standards, Inc. owns the certification marked CFP and Certified Financial Planner in the U.S., which it awards to individuals who successfully complete CFP Board's initial and ongoing certification requirements. Howard Bailey Financial is a registered trademark of Howard Bailey Financial. All rights reserved. Information is not intended to provide specific legal or tax advice. Howard Bailey Financial nor its advisors are qualified to give tax or legal advice. You are encouraged to consult with your tax or legal professional for guidance on your individual situation. This radio show is a paid placement.